Marcus Ellison was 38 years old, and for 9 years he had been the kind of man his ex-wife introduced at parties with a smile that carried just enough apology in it to be cruel. To the people who moved through Vanessa's world, the gallery curators, the interior designers, the weekend brunch crowd in South End Charlotte, Marcus was the logistics man, the quiet one, the one who drove a 10-year-old Tahoe and wore boots that weren't fashionable and spoke when he was spoken to, and was otherwise easy to overlook. Vanessa had a way of occupying a room that made everyone in it feel slightly less polished. Marcus had never minded that. He had been raised by a woman who told him that the loudest thing in any space was rarely the most important. He had signed the divorce papers on a Thursday in April, 3 years prior. He had not contested a single line. Vanessa had walked out of that courthouse believing she understood exactly what she was leaving behind. She had no idea that the building she had spent 14 months trying to move into, the one with the restored ironwork and the fourth-floor corner unit she described to her friends as her dream apartment, was owned in its entirety by a holding company whose sole member was the quiet man she had just finished divorcing. She had no idea that when she called him on a Tuesday evening in October to ask if he would be her witness at her upcoming civil ceremony to a man named Dorian Wells, she was calling the landlord of the home she planned to share with him. What happened in the weeks that followed would cost her something she had already promised someone else. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The evening light in Marcus Ellison's Charlotte office came through a west-facing window he had never bothered to shade, and it fell across the surface of his drafting table in a long rectangle that moved toward the wall as the hours passed. He tracked it sometimes without meaning to. The way it crossed the edge of a site map, the way it reached the far corner and disappeared. His grandfather had called that kind of involuntary attention a good sign in a man. It meant he was present. It meant he was noticing. Marcus noticed things. He sat now with a mug of coffee that had gone lukewarm and a set of floor plans spread across the table for a warehouse conversion project in the Noda district, a mixed-use building his firm had been retained to redesign for residential and commercial occupation. The work was detailed and patient, which suited him. He had been in logistics and property development long enough to understand that the difference between a project that held and one that failed was almost always in the preparation beneath the surface, the part no one photographed. His grandmother, a woman named Ida, who had raised him in a narrow house in Greensboro after his mother passed, used to say that a man who understood the foundation of a thing would never be surprised by how it stood. She had been talking about character, not construction, but Marcus had always found the two indistinguishable. He had met Vanessa at a fundraiser in 2012, an arts benefit in a renovated warehouse space, the kind of event where the drinks cost too much and the conversations cost more. She had been standing in front of a large canvas she clearly did not like, describing it to someone beside her in terms so precisely diplomatic they were almost funny. He had laughed. She had turned. That had been the beginning. She was an interior designer, gifted genuinely in the way some people are gifted with color and proportion, and the instinct for what a room needs to feel like itself. She had built a small firm over the years of their marriage that had grown into something real. He had been proud of it. He had been proud of her. He had believed for most of those 9 years that she was proud of him too. In the quiet way a person can be proud of something they have stopped looking at directly. The marriage had not ended with violence or revelation. It had ended the way a structure fails under gradual load, not snapping, but settling, millimeter by millimeter, until the alignment was wrong in ways too small to point to and too large to correct. Vanessa had told him, near the end, that she needed someone who matched her energy. He had not asked her to define the phrase. He already knew what it meant. What she had never asked, not once in 9 years, was what Marcus actually did between the hours of 7 in the morning and the time he walked through their front door. She knew the surface of it: logistics consulting, some property work, a firm he had incorporated before they met. She had attended 2 company dinners and found them dull. She had not attended a third. On his desk, beside the floor plans, sat a small photograph in a plain wooden frame. Ida at her kitchen table, a cup of tea in front of her, looking at something just past the camera with an expression that was not quite a smile and not quite seriousness, but the particular combination of both that meant she was thinking about something important. He picked it up for a moment, the way he sometimes did in the evenings, and set it back down. Then his phone rang. He almost did not recognize the number. He had not deleted it, which was not sentiment. It was simply that Marcus did not delete things. He kept records. He let the second ring finish before he answered. Marcus. Her voice was exactly as he remembered it. Composed, warm on the surface, with that slight precision underneath that always meant she was managing something. "Vanessa," he said, "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." He looked at the lukewarm coffee and the fading light on the floor plans. "No," he said. She asked after his health and his work, with the efficiency of someone clearing obligations before arriving at the purpose. Then she arrived at the purpose. She was getting married. She had been with someone for just over a year. His name was Dorian. He was an architect. She was very happy. The ceremony was going to be small, intentional, just a few people. She wanted someone from her previous life to be present, someone she respected, someone who understood her. She wanted that person to be Marcus. He was quiet for a moment. "You want me to witness?" he said. "Yes," she said. "I know it's an unusual ask, but you know me, Marcus. You always did." "When?" he said. 6 weeks, she said. "We've already found the space. A building in South End. There's a 4th floor unit, corner apartment. It's exactly what I always wanted. We're planning the ceremony there and then staying on." Marcus looked at the photograph of Ida. "The building on Tremont," he said. Not a question. A small pause. "How did you know that?" "I've heard it's a beautiful property," he said. There was warmth in her voice now. Genuine warmth, the kind she used when she felt understood. "It is. The ironwork alone, Marcus. It's like someone built it for me. We're signing the lease next week." He said he would think about it and call her back within the day. She thanked him. They said goodbye. He set the phone on the drafting table and looked at it for a long moment. Then he picked up a different phone, a work line, and called his property manager. The building on Tremont Street was a 7-unit mixed-use residential property that Marcus had acquired in 2019 through his development company, rehabilitated over 18 months, and brought to full occupancy in 2021. The 4th floor corner unit, the one with the original ironwork on the exterior and the east-facing windows that held morning light and the way good architecture always held light, was his best unit. It was currently occupied by a tenant whose lease was expiring. It had been listed for renewal 2 weeks prior. The application at the top of his property manager's pending file, submitted 4 days ago, was under the name Vanessa Price Wells. He listened to his property manager explain this, with the measured patience of a man who had already assembled most of the picture and was simply verifying the corners. "She's qualified on paper," the manager said. "Strong income, good references. Do you want me to process it?" Marcus was quiet. "Hold it," he said. "Don't approve or decline. I'll call you back." He sat for a long time after that call. Not with the photograph, not with the floor plans, but with nothing, just the window and the dark that had finished replacing the gold while he wasn't watching. He was not angry. He recognized that clearly in himself, the way he recognized structural states in materials, not from feeling them, but from measuring. What he felt was something closer to the quiet alertness that came before a decision, the moment before the pencil touched the paper, when all the variables were present and the only thing left was to determine what to build. He called his attorney the following morning. Her name was Patricia Lund, a property attorney of 20 years who had handled every acquisition Marcus had made since his 3rd year in business. She was 61, small, and possessed of a manner so consistently unhurried that opposing counsel occasionally mistook it for inattention. They were always wrong about that. She listened to the full situation without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "She doesn't know," Patricia said. "No." "She applied for the unit without knowing you own the building." "Correct." "And she's asked you to be present at her wedding, which she plans to hold in that unit." "Yes." Patricia made a small sound that was not quite a laugh. "Marcus." "I know," he said. "What are you thinking?" He had been thinking about it since the night before. Not about advantage, not about leverage, but about what Ida would have said, and what Clarence would have said, and what the version of himself he most respected would do with a situation that had handed him something he had not asked for and did not need to use. "I want to be transparent," he said. "But I want the timing to be correct." Patricia considered this. "You mean you want to tell her, but not yet?" "I want to understand what she actually knows before I determine what needs to be said." "And in the meantime?" "Process the application," he said. "Approve it by normal standards. She qualifies." Patricia was quiet again. "You're going to let her sign a lease on your building and then tell her." "I'm going to fulfill my obligations as a landlord and be honest about my identity. The order in which those things happen is a matter of timing." That's a very engineering way to think about a very human situation. "Yes," Marcus said. He spent the following 2 weeks attending to his own work with the focused normality of a man who had learned that the most important preparation was often the kind nobody observed. He reviewed the lease documents himself. He confirmed the unit's condition with his property manager, new fixtures in the kitchen, the ironwork cleaned and sealed for the winter, the east windows reglazed the prior spring. The unit was excellent. She would be well housed. He called Vanessa back the evening after his conversation with Patricia and told her he would be her witness. She was genuinely pleased. He could hear it in the quality of her silence before she spoke, the kind that meant she had been hoping for a particular answer and had not been certain of it. That pleased him in a way he could not have explained cleanly, only that it confirmed something he had always believed about her. She was not entirely the person she had become in the last years of their marriage. There was still something in her that remembered how to be grateful. He asked about Dorian. She spoke about him with the kind of specificity that meant she was not performing happiness. Dorian was detail-oriented, she said. He noticed things. He made decisions the way she did, from instinct, but backed by thought. He had redesigned the layout of their future apartment himself, she said, working with the original floor plan, preserving what was worth preserving. Marcus listened and said the appropriate things. At one point, she laughed about something Dorian had said about the building's bones, that the original construction was unusually sound for its era, that whoever had overseen the rehabilitation had understood what they were doing. Marcus let that pass without comment. On the Thursday before the ceremony, Patricia called him. She signed, Patricia said. Lease is executed. Dorian Wells co-signed. Occupancy starts the first of the month. Good, Marcus said. They're planning the ceremony for the Saturday after move-in. I know. Marcus. Patricia's voice carried the particular tone she used when she was about to say something she had been holding. Are you sure you want to be in that room when she finds out? He thought about it genuinely. Yes, he said. Why? He looked at the photograph of Ida on his desk. Because she asked me, he said, and I said I would be there. And I keep my word. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Your grandmother would have liked that answer. She would have told me I was being stubborn, he said. Same thing, Patricia said. The Saturday was cool and gray, in the particular way Charlotte Saturdays in November sometimes are. Not unpleasant, just overcast. The kind of sky that flattens the light and makes everything look slightly more permanent than usual. Marcus arrived at the building on Tremont 12 minutes early. He wore a dark suit, no tie, his good shoes. He nodded to his property manager, who was standing in the lobby at his request and who knew to be present but not visible once the ceremony began. The fourth-floor unit had been arranged simply. Chairs in a small arc facing the east windows, flowers on a side table, afternoon light coming through the ironwork in the late morning gray, and laying its pattern across the floor in the way Marcus had always privately thought was the finest thing about that particular unit. Vanessa had placed a candle on the windowsill. It was the kind of detail she was good at. She was already there when he arrived. She had on a cream dress and her hair the way she had worn it at the fundraiser where they met. And she looked at him when he came through the door with an expression that was more open than he had seen from her in years. Something loosened in it, the way a person looks when they are genuinely happy and not performing anything. You came, she said. I said I would, he said. Dorian was there, a composed man of about 40 with architect's eyes that moved around a room the way architect's eyes do, assessing proportion and light. He shook Marcus's hand with a directness that Marcus respected. There were 4 other guests. A celebrant stood near the window with papers. The ceremony was short, as she had promised. The celebrant spoke about foundations, not metaphorically, simply about the building, about what it meant to begin something in a space that had been built to last. Vanessa smiled. Dorian held her hand. Marcus stood at the correct angle and signed the document when it was placed in front of him, his signature clear and deliberate. When it was over, and the small group had moved toward a table where champagne had been set out, Vanessa came to stand beside him at the window. They looked out at the ironwork and the overcast sky and the street below. Thank you, she said. It means more than you know. He turned to look at her. Vanessa, he said, there's something I should have told you before today. She turned toward him with a slight smile, still warm from the ceremony. That sounds serious. It isn't a problem, he said, but it's something you should know. He told her. He told her simply and in sequence. The acquisition in 2019, the rehabilitation, the occupancy, the application that had arrived on his property manager's desk 4 days after she had called him. He did not dress it up. He did not apologize for the timing. He simply laid out the facts in the order they had occurred, the way he laid out a set of plans, not to impress, but to inform. She was very still while he spoke. When he finished, the room had its own sound, the quiet murmur of the other guests, the distant sound of the street, the particular silence of a person reassembling their understanding of a situation. You own this building, she said. Yes. You have owned it since 2019. Yes. And when I called you. I didn't know you were the applicant, he said. I found out the morning after you called. She looked at the window, then back at him. Why didn't you tell me before today? He considered the honest answer, the way he always considered things, not quickly, but completely. Because you asked me to be here, he said, and I wanted to be here. And I wanted to tell you in a way that was clear, not in a phone call, not in paperwork. Dorian had come to stand beside her, close enough to have caught the last of the exchange. He looked at Marcus with the measured attention of a man who was reading a load-bearing element and trying to determine if it was sound. Marcus met his gaze without difficulty. You could have rejected the application, Dorian said, not accusatory, factual. She qualified, Marcus said. It's a good unit. You'll be comfortable here. Vanessa made a sound that was almost a laugh, not quite. Something more complicated than that. The sound a person makes when they have arrived somewhere unexpected and are still determining how they feel about it. You witnessed my wedding, she said. In your own building? Yes, Marcus said. She looked at him for a long moment. The expression on her face moved through several things he recognized: surprise, then something like self-assessment, then something softer that he thought might be understanding, the real kind, the kind that cost something. The bones, she said quietly. Dorian said the bones were unusually sound. I had a good team, Marcus said. She looked at the window again, at the ironwork, at the light that was beginning to come through as the overcast sky thinned in the west. You always did, she said. He let that stand. Dorian shook his hand before he left, firmly, with the directness of a man who had recalculated and arrived at a conclusion. Marcus appreciated that. The property manager was waiting in the lobby when he came down. How did it go? The manager asked. Fine, Marcus said. He pulled on his coat. They're good tenants. Take care of the unit. He walked out into the November afternoon, turned toward his truck, and did not look back at the building. He had designed it to stand without him watching. That was the point of building anything well. A foundation didn't require your attention to hold. It just held. 11 months later, on a Sunday morning in October, Marcus sat on the back steps of a house he was renovating in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood. A narrow craftsman with original hardwood floors and a back porch that needed new boards, which he was replacing himself on weekends because the work settled something in him that the office work did not. The yard had a single large oak that dropped its leaves in long drifts across the grass in the early morning. He had a coffee. He had plans rolled up beside him on the step. And he had a phone call from Patricia that had come in 20 minutes prior with a development he had not anticipated. Vanessa and Dorian had called his management company the prior week, not to raise a complaint, to inquire about the building next door, a comparable property that had just come to market, and to ask, specifically, whether Marcus Ellison's firm had any interest in it, and if so, whether Dorian's architectural services might be worth a conversation. Marcus had listened to Patricia read the message twice. She still doesn't know everything, Patricia said. No, Marcus said, but she knows what matters. What are you going to do? He looked at the oak tree, which was losing the last of its leaves in a slow, deliberate fall, each one making its own quiet decision about when to let go. I'll call Dorian, he said. Set up a meeting. He's got good instincts. And Vanessa? Marcus picked up his coffee. She found the right building, he said. She just didn't know she already knew the architect. He set the phone down and looked at the plans beside him. The back porch, the new boards, The careful measurements for a structure that would hold what it needed to hold for as long as it was built to last. He picked up his pencil. He measured twice. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.